Greetings, brothers and sisters. KABOOM! Israel group mints Trump coin to honor Jerusalem recognition. One of my viewers tipped me off to this. So this is Donnie fucking Shekels, right? President Donald Trump declaration where they made Jerusalem I don't know, whatever, they put the American embassy there. But they put Donald J. Trump on a shekel. Donnie freaking Shekels. I mean, he's on a shekel. I was like so happy about it. There's so many great big things that I have to get to today. But Donnie Shekels being on a shekel is by far, the lead story here. This is how much shekel he's up. They put him on a shekel. And so I've talked about how shekel is such a great word. It just is. And they have Jerusalem here. I don't know, some kind of BS thing that is. An Israeli organization said Wednesday it has minted a coin bearing President Donald Trump's image to honor his recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The Mikdash Educational Center said that the temple coin features Trump alongside King Cyrus, who 2,500 years ago allowed Jews to return to Jerusalem from their exile in Babylon. His organization minted 1,000 biblical half shekel coins that have been purchased with a minimum donation of $50. He doesn't even get a full shekel. He's a half shekel. Trump is a half shekel fucking coin. That's how much he's shekeled. He's only a half shekel, because, in fairness, he's just what do you call it? He's, what's that word that they have for the people there? If you're not, the goy. He's a goy. Goys only get a half shekel. He's on there with this other king. So that's Donnie freaking Trump. So today's Wednesday, November 12th. This video won't be up till Friday. It's loaded. I knew I was going to lead with this because Donnie freaking Shekels. Look at the shekels. Look at him hit Donnie freaking half shekels. He's half shekels, right? Charlie Shekels and Donnie half shekels, and they're all shekeled up. There's some kind of thing there. I guess that's the whole article. The Trump coin is likely to rile Iranians who uninformedly respect King Cyrus as an ancient Persian hero. So putting their hero, so there's a big FU to the Iranians too. So, Donnie Shekels. Donnie half shekels. So this is a video entitled The Truth About Tucker and Charlie Kirk, Egregious BBC Lie, and some other things. But this is Megyn Kelly and Beef Stew here, that do America, right?
With your cat, does that make you attack other people? But I do think there's a disconnect that's brewing between younger people and just the people around them. They don't see them as humans. They don't have any respect for them at all. I mean, I think it was really, really easy, a super low bar to clear, to feel sadness for the family of Charlie Kirk, for the people that supported him, even if you hate their ideas. I mean, I don't find that to be a challenging thing. If someone on the left is murdered, there's no moment where I'm like, gosh, I don't know, is this a good thing? It's never a consideration for a human being that can operate within a civilization. And that aspect of whatever bond.
Where do they get these Republican gay dudes? Look at it. It's like a plague, right, on these Republicans who, they're just mocking the shit out of them. Because the Republicans, if anybody's anti-gay, it's Republicans, right? I don't care. But I always think it's funny when people who are supposed to be one way, they're celebrating. The Republican agenda is to get rid of the they, them, all this kind of stuff. And the fact that this guy who was, this patsy they got out for Charlie Kirk and that weird stuff with his transgender boyfriend, the weird love letter and all that stuff. And then all these effeminate gay dudes, right? If they're not gay, they're really not, they're not manly men, the kind of men that the right wing has, famous for wanting to be, right? White wing, tough guy, gun owning, tough, old school, even if not tough, but manly men, right? And they have these very feminine dudes, right?
Even if you hate their ideas, I mean, I don't find that to be a challenging
I
thing.
don't, I don't find that to be attractive. Like, just, and the women that's supposed to, like, these Republican women like a manly man. Like, that's their whole thing, right? And that's all TPS US gay. And here's Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly's husband is really effeminate. Like, I was like, wait, how is he not gay? Like this. Let's see if we can find her husband. So here.
So let's do the quiz. No, stop. Don't do the quiz.
Okay, just that laugh, right? Megyn Kelly's got that deep voice. People think she's Nicole Brown Simpson, but also a dude. But yeah, that's whatever. So Don Lemon came out and said that he was flirting with either Don or his boyfriend or both. Like, they met him and they clearly saw that this guy was one of them, right? A gay dude. And, it became a whole thing because they went at each other. And so I looked into it. I'm like, is there any legitimacy?
Yes, do the quiz. Okay. Honestly, like, I don't know when I got to be such a lightweight.
I mean, just that laugh. Like, when does he get to talk here? Here we go.
I'll give you a hint.
I'll give you a hint because one Christmas Eve.
He buzzed me.
You got a buzzer.
F.
All right, let's see if you can get
You got a buzzer, too.
After this hint. One Christmas Eve, there was an 11th hour, literally at 11 p.m. Christmas. The only thing that matters.
I know it.
Okay,
I know it. Oh, it was terrible. And then it was.
So he's very gay. And she's like talking to her gay best friend.
Gold sexy, or silver sexy, gold sexy, platinum sexy, and it sort of described outfits at each tier. And then it gets to black diamond sexy, which is the most sexy you can be as a guy.
That's a woman with a penis. That's black diamond sexy.
And had to dress. And under black diamond sexy was literally khaki pants
Your
and
outfit.
yellow. It was like 100%. Like, weirdly, you always phrased it in this weird way. It even got.
Okay, so where do they get these fucking guys? And again, if they're not gay, they're at least very effeminate. Like, they're people that you're like, is that guy gay? Like, it's like one of those things, right? And like, he's married to a woman, but that means nothing. Especially in this context of these celebrities, these posing marriages. But like, holy shit, bro. And they just keep on rolling them out, one guy after another. None of them are like what you think. Scott Jennings, I covered him yesterday. These guys, Lindsey Graham. I mean, Lindsey, this first name even, like, just, like, like, why even you're naming a dude Lindsey? And they come in and they're like, and she's this weird laugh that she has, right? Like, there's just, low testosterone, just all that stuff. Okay, so I had the long version of this video. And I didn't want that because we didn't want to go through that. But this is a story. Well, let me say more about that. So YouTube recommended this video to me, this shorter version. And it gets into some stories about Charlie Kirk from Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly from one of the events, that was like a month or so before the assassination attempt, right? Whatever you want to call it. The big event for Charlie Kirk. And somehow I didn't put it up on my toolbar, so I went back to find it. And I had this longer video, which is just filled with, this is this guy, Stu. And it's like the title of the thing is Megyn and Stu Do America. It's like this, Megyn and her gay buddy do America. But anyways, here's this story about when they saw Charlie Kirk, and it's very revealing in a lot of ways. So here's the first piece.
He knew what Tucker was saying, including about Israel, and continued to invite him to Turning Point events. And so I just wanted to tell this story because I think people are misunderstanding. Like, Charlie was all for really robust discussions of very tough issues, including Israel and beyond. It's just he wouldn't necessarily lead them because he did have donors, and he also was very close with the administration. And so
he did want to say stuff himself because he had donors who were he was taking shekels, and the administration also was taking shekels, right? See, they get around to the truth here, these guys, it's always they're the last, they're bandwagoners. And, it's good that they do it because then it opens it up to be discussed more publicly by everybody, which is happening now. But other than that, it has no real effect, and I'll get into that in a moment, by the time it gets to these guys. But Charlie Shekels was clearly seeing that he couldn't sustain a ridiculous taint-licking position on Israel where he said everything that they wanted him to say, all the talking points, these ridiculous talking points that, nobody, even within Israel, they don't believe him. In Israel, there's a lot of liberals and a lot of people who are pro-Palestinian, people with hearts, good people. In every country, it's just going to be that. And so, it's not like Bibi has this overwhelming majority. It's just like with every other country. But they're so scared, the people, like they're voting with him and the right because they're scared. Like they know they're like fucked right now. And so even the liberals are worried, like, if they take their boot off the throat of Palestine, these other things, that they'll just be overrun or whatever they think, whatever it is. But let's get to it here. But Charlie Kirk is, he was aware of it, which means he was a real piece of shit because these guys all knew. These guys have known for years. We'll show you an old video, Bow Tie Tucker Carlson taking his shekels.
I just wanted to say two things. Number one, there was a Turning Point event last July, and many of us were there, and we all saw Charlie. And that was an appearance at which I spent all my time talking about Epstein. It was right after the whole debacle with Pam Bondi promising she's got the file on her desk and she's going to reveal it, and then releasing that 2-page memo saying, oh, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing to talk about. I don't know what you're referring to with those Fox News hits. They memory hold them. And the FBI got swooped up into it, and it was very controversial. And that is what my appearance was. Not a speech. It was a Q&A. And that is what Charlie wanted to talk about. And backstage, he made very clear to me that he wanted to focus in on Pam Bondi and encouraged me.
So we saw this, right? Like we saw this discussion between them and then them talking about this. So Charlie Kirk now realizes, and not in some way like, oh my God, I got to get the truth out to my people. Like you have a relationship with your audience, right? And my relationship with you guys isn't going to be social, and I'm not going to be kind and warm and, oh, thank you guys so much, like this kind of thing. I'm just not, I'm not built that way. But what what you get for me in terms of something that's valuable is that I'm not, I feel some responsibility not to mislead anybody, not to certainly, take shekels and tell you guys lies and use, any kind of manipulation, these things, which is, to me is much more valuable than giving people shout outs and doing all those things and being social, like being a networker and connecting with people, because, those are things people do when they're trying to steal shit from you or mislead you or whatever, right? I mean, people can do that and do what I'm doing, but I can't do both. So you're going to have one or the other. But, in terms of telling your audience the truth, like your audience is coming to you for information. They want to know what's going on. They know they're being lied to by the official story. And so they want to know what's going on. And these young people and all these people. And then Charlie Shekels was aware, because he eventually said it himself, that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to Mossad, which means Israel was running a foreign agent who was taking American young girls and prostituting them in being a pedophile himself, but also prostituting them to these people, including the Prime Minister of Israel. The woman Virginia Giuffre, who was it was the one who took down, or was not take down, but was prostituted to Prince Andrew, said that she was really abused, like she was bleeding out of her orifices, including her anus, like graphic, fucking brutal shit. This is what her lawyer said. And this guy was so sadistic, the more that she begged for help, the more aroused he would get. And she said he was a prime minister. And she said she had only been with one prime minister, and that was the Prime Minister of Israel. So, like, this Prime Minister of Israel was abusing a young American girl when Jeffrey Epstein was doing this on the behest of Mossad. So that fucks them so bad. You know, I mean, that's what they've done to this. You know, they've gotten 300 billion, trillions of dollars actually from America, and is this parasitic relationship, and then that's how they treat our American girls, young, teenage girls, right? And like fucking, I mean, this is a bad thing. And so one reason why the Epstein files just will never be released, because like that Mossad shit. I mean, to think that a foreign government was running a prostitution ring with a pedophile ring in America, and then using it to spy on American, blackmail American politicians, like holy fuck, right? That would destroy that relationship pretty quickly.
To really go for her. Now, I didn't need Charlie's direction because I'd been going for her on my show, so it's not like this was
Look at him. Look at this.
orchestrated. He had been listening to my show, and he was basically like, please say all of that right here. And that's fine. I'm like, you're leading the Q&A, let's do this, which is what happened. So Charlie was not at all averse to seeing Pam Bondi take a hit. He was just too polite to be the one personally.
No, see, it's not polite. It's a fucking lying piece of shit. Now, earlier they were talking about all these left people going after the family and going after TPUSK and all these things. And they're talking about having common decency. Like that was the long video. And I'm glad I accidentally clicked on that one because, it had Tucker in the title, but this one's the name of this video. Megan reveals new info about what Charlie Kirk told Tucker Carlson. And so YouTube recommended this video, by the way, to me yesterday. So that's an important distinction because they're promoting this stuff for whatever reason. And it's, it's negative towards Israel. But they were getting on that whole thing about all these people and, you show some common decency. The problem is that there's been, 8,000 murders a day. And many of those murders have been men who are killed who are husbands. And the women are left as single moms. And nobody gives a shit about any of those other murders. And they're, all this resources being dumped into Erica Kirk and her fake fucking acting bullshit. She shows the video clip of Erica Kirk put on Instagram of the daughter singing to the son. What I covered in my video yesterday was so fucking weird and creepy and just performative. And not, it's not inspirational but they're all, they're all pandering to Erica Kirk's bullshit, right? But the truth of the matter is, it wasn't that he was too kind to go after Pam Bondi, is he's owned by he's shackled up, and he's trying to keep his relationship with Trump. Charlie Sheckles wanted this information out, and he wanted his audience to see that there was more to this story because he was losing his audience. This isn't about having some heart for the Palestinian children, the kids of Gaza. It isn't about any of those things. It was about him trying to not piss off his shekels, the guys delivering him the shekels, his donors, and the Trump administration, but also get the information out there. And these guys knew what he was doing. They're not fucking stupid. They could see what he was doing. And so they started to pressure him, right?
To do it himself. But he knew that the administration wasn't going to like that, and he was not shy about that. He thought that was an important issue. And who was really hot on that issue in particular? Well, Republicans, yes, and young Republicans, too, who smelled a rat and just felt like, do we have the same thing with this administration as we've had with other administrations, red or blue, where, important people get protected and only people with no connections are left to fry? So anyway, that was one example. And the second example also relates partially to Epstein.
So, that was these people that he saw he couldn't lose as his audience. So his audience was going one way, and his shekel providers were telling him to go the other way. And he knew he's either going to lose his audience or he's going to lose his donors. And so, or lose his life, which is, what's happened here, whatever that is, whatever that means.
And partially to Israel, and involves Tucker. So 2 weeks after Charlie died, Tucker had me on a live broadcast he did of his own show. It was on a Wednesday night, and it was about free speech. It was about a lot of things, and definitely touched on Charlie too. And he and I had a long talk that night. It was actually a great show. Here is Tucker describing his discussion behind the scenes with Charlie. Now, before I play this, Tucker
Man hands.
would come on.
Okay, so let's jump forward here. This is from Tucker's show, which I didn't know because I wasn't watching this. I just was listening to it. Tucker copyrighted me the last time, so fucking this, but I want to get this in if I can. But he was talking about how he didn't want another war with Iran. He didn't want to be dragged into a forever war. And so this is him talking to Megyn Kelly about, here it is, though.
I was going on at some length backstage with Charlie, and I said, probably not going to talk about that. I'm not going to torture you. I know your donors hate this when I say that.
So he's acknowledging that he's shackled up. This was common knowledge. Everyone knew that Kirk was getting money from Israel. These pro-Israeli donors. He was getting hundreds of millions of dollars. They were building him buildings because he was so pro-Israel. But then they had this, bullshit, genocide. And they lost Candace Owens. And they lost these other people. And then everyone started to turn. And Charlie Kirk was caught in the middle. But he's acknowledging you're a bought man. You're a slave. You're Charlie Shekels. You've been shackled up. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm going to censor myself because of your donors.
And also Epstein was in the news, and it was clear to me that, Epstein's probably not like a Mossad agent or something, but Epstein clearly had contact with Israel.
He was that. Why say that? Of course it was. You think he was just maybe not a Mossad agent, but an asset, that he was running these girls for Mossad. He was doing this program because they need to blag all the things he said about Israel being desperate, right, and needing to, control this narrative because they're, parasitic relationship with America.
Israeli intelligence and American intelligence and French intelligence, but the only one you're not allowed to talk about is Israeli intelligence. But it seemed true to me. And I had done some work on that. I knew a bunch of people pretty close to that story. So I thought that. And I said that to Charlie. And I said, but I'm not going to say that because I don't want to make your donors mad. I know it's just going to be like an endless.
I don't want to make your donors mad. Jesus Christ.
Flurry of text telling you to stop or you're going to lose a bunch of funding. And he looked at me, I'll never forget it, and said, go all the way. Do it. Go all the way. I said, man, a lot of things I can talk about. I don't need to talk about that. And he said, do it. So I did it.
Just a fucked up thing, right? That he said. Like he was, going to censor himself. He's making it sound like Charlie was brave and a good man. He was taking fucking shekels to lie to American people. He's owned by a foreign, he was a lobbyist for Israel. And he was a lobbyist for Zionism. And he was a lobbyist for genocide. And he was brainwashing these kids, these college kids who are rightfully upset by what they see going on in Palestine. When you're, when you're idealistic and you have this time when you're in college, that time you're becoming an adult, you start realizing what the world's about. And, it's just a college experience that kids have. And they were right about this thing. And all the pressure that's come to bear, and Trump now, stripping money from these universities that themselves are already captured by Israeli donors, Harvard and these other universities. And these kids being threatened that they're going to, they're running out having these vans show up in their neighborhoods and tell all the neighbors of these kids' parents that the kid's a terrorist. This is shit that's going on. This is Jewish guys coming out and saying this is happening, right? That guy, whatever his name is, Max Blumenthal and some of these other people. And so, this is well known as Dave Smith and these people. And so these guys are Jewish, anti-Israel or anti-Zionist people talking about these kids in the protests. And that guy, Norman Finkelstein, he was the one who said that with that interview with Candace Owens. So, there's these things that these kids are no longer doing these protests because they was beat out of them, and they're scared the shit out of them. These American kids their freedom of speech is being suppressed by Israel. And Charlie Kirk was a lobbyist for all this anti-American. He's a Judas, right? He's betraying Christians and his Christian religion, his tradition. He's betraying Jesus. He's representing Christianity, but shilling for the Pharisees, right? All this stuff, right? He's a Benedict Arnold. He's betraying his country, as our Trump sold to another country that's using America in a parasitic way. And they're applauding him for allowing him to come out and say the truth when he's so shackled up. It's like such a fucked up thing, right? Like he's that shackled up. And I don't have to talk about this because I know how shackled up you are, and I don't want to piss off your shekel providers. And he's like, go ahead, say it. And his shekel providers didn't like it because now he's dead, right? And you think about the correlation, but she's basically confirming a lot of the things that Candace Owens been saying, and this was already out there in some ways. But it's clear, like, what's happened, that they don't even want to come out and say it, right? So when, people like Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson start saying stuff like this, you think it's better because they have a big audience. And now millions of people are hearing about this. But the people that are hearing about this are, like, kind of worthless, more so than the normal truthers. Because, if you need somebody like this, if you need, somebody who's in the club to tell you, like people who follow over celebrities who dabble in truth stuff, and the celebrities don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they're, completely owned, and they've been, selling out, and they've been taking shekels for years in one way or another. And so, but it's like when there's a trend, the trend might be cool in the beginning, but then it reaches a level of the population that it's already fucking jumped the shark. It's already played out. And so by the time Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens to some extent get to this thing, it's completely owned. And now they're taking hold of something, like they're taking ownership of something that existed organically. And these people are all part of the show, and they're all shackled up. And like I said, the one problem with the truth community, the Alex Jones model, where you think if we wake everybody up, if you wake the sheeple up, that there's going to be hell to pay. But the sheeple are passive. And they're not, if they're listening to you, then you are more, you're willing to say more and do more than they're willing to do, right? And so if you don't have a solution, and you're somebody who, can see through some of the bullshit, and people need you to tell them and show them the bullshit because they need you to break the spell or whatever it is, right? And so if you're a spell breaker and you're someone who can, expose all these kind of things, then you're better suited to come up with a solution and be more active than these passive people that have to come, that wait till Megyn Kelly tells them what's up, right? And so those people are worthless. They're not going to do anything. Just as worthless as we are, because we don't have a solution either, because there is no solution. The solution, I have a solution, which is you connect to the divinity within you and wait for the system to implode in the time where, you always need God, but even more so then. Because the system's going to implode of its own depravity. That's how it always works, right? And so let's see if they...
And here's the thing, Stu.
I
was recently going through some old pictures to find one of me and Charlie that I knew we took at that event. And not only did I find pictures of me and Charlie, but I found a video of me, Tucker, and Charlie speaking backstage right before Tucker went out. Tucker and I were talking. Charlie came over and interrupted for just a second. And you can hear him on this tape, which I've listened to many times. It's very clear on my phone, less clear here probably as we play it. But he says to Tucker, go Max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go Max.
Go Max. Go for it. I'm all shackled up and I'm a traitor and I'm Judas. But you go out there and you tell a little bit of truth about Israel. That's going Max.
Here it is.
Boom. It's kind of like they didn't even want him. They're like, okay, get out of here, fuck it. Get out of here, shekel boy. All right, so that's the first piece. So this is a young, shackled up Tucker Carlson, right? It's important to understand. Now, he's admitted to making these mistakes. Like, when he was talking to Megyn Kelly, he was talking about using the fear card, riling up these people. Because I've said this many times, that Fox News and the right use fear to create anger in the right. They try to scare the right about change. And, the change is coming. It's change that you don't want. It's anti-American. It's liberal change. And, scare you about that stuff. And then you get angry. The liberals, they say they're trying to suppress and keep these old, abusive ways. This is how the liberal media does it. And they use anger, get outraged. You guys got to use anger as a catalyst, and that anger causes fear. That piece of shit shill Alex Jones. All these people, they use fear, Chicken Little, the sky's falling. And they, you see the commercials about, the medicines that they're putting, these older generation too, the people who watch news, the people who are worried about like the end of their life, and they're worried about the future of their children and grandchildren. And they push all this fear, the medical community, the pharmaceutical drug ads that they get, all the advertisements about safe lock, losing your data, getting hacked, these things, right? And so Tucker Carlson was talking about fear and how he used to use it, and he's ashamed of it, but he still does it to whatever extent. Appealing to people's base emotions, which I never do here, right? You never hear me do that. What do I say? Like, there's a message here that God has a plan, and that plan involves the collapse of our system, and that is scary in itself, but I don't make it scary. I don't try to, and I don't enhance it with music and these things. That's the message, is that even under those circumstances, that God has a plan. Like, you either believe in God or not. And if you believe in God, you believe that there's a plan. And the problem is that almost everybody has a problem with some part of God's plan. For themselves, they have a problem with their soul's plan and God's plan, and then collectively, right? But anyways, he talked about using fear. And this is back at that time. So he's admitted that he had to change, which is a positive thing. Again, he's a CIA shell, but, whatever. But this is him back then.
America's relationship with Israel. Israel has a lobby. It's perfectly fair, as far as I'm concerned, to beat up on Israel's lobby. But I don't think that's the reason that Buchanan is being labeled an anti-Semite. It's this kind of, as I've said, this relentless bringing up topics related to Judaism. Famously, Pat, always beats up on Goldman Sachs, but never Morgan Stanley. It's really hard to. There is no point at which Pat Buchanan has held a press conference and said, I really don't like the Jews. I think they're a sinister force in America. But I think, and it took me years to come to this position. I'm not throwing the term anti-Semite around. But you reach a point when you say, well, gee, here's a guy who has gone out of his way to defend Demjanjuk and other accused Nazi war criminals, who's constantly attacked Israel, who's attacked American Jews for supporting Israel unduly.
So you can see that he was shackled up, right?
Who's implied that American Jews push America into wars in which non-Jews die. There really is, and again, I'm not hysterical on this subject, but I do believe that there is a pattern with Pat Buchanan of needling the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic? Yeah. After a while, you conclude.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah. He's needling. He's the Jews. Yeah. All right. So, all these guys, and Tucker Carlson's smart. He's one of the smarter people out there. And he's good at his, whatever job this is. He's good at it. He's able to articulate things. So he's a good asset. And so people think there's a dark room. These guys go in and they're given their marching orders. But they don't even need that. And they don't want that. Like, they don't want, they want plausible deniability. They don't, there's not written documents and these things. And, some people need instruction. But that's for, these other guys, these underlings to do. And so if you're a person in the media, you learn pretty quickly what you can say, what you can't say, who you can criticize and who you can't. And Israel and the Israeli, Zionist bullshit stuff, they all know. They all know. It's unwritten rules. They all know, and they, whatever they think about it personally, because he knew. He knew back then it was bullshit, right? But you have to carry water for these motherfuckers because that's just, and especially if you're shackled up. I covered this with Van Jones, who compared anybody who's criticizing Israel with being a Satanist and a pedophile. The Democratic liberal Van Jones, who went on wearing the yellow pin and and laughed about dead children in Gaza, right? So, these guys all know the game. They take the money and they know what that money is for, right? And they take the money in one way or another.
Is in some sense anti-Semitic. I mean, Pat
And by money, I mean shekels.
Buchanan obviously has a lot of personal and affectionate relationships with people who are Jewish. So on a personal level, perhaps he's not, but on a different, maybe thematic level, I think he probably is. I think that people should be allowed to have differing views on immigration. I think people should be allowed to point out the fact that there is an Israeli lobby, and yes, it's powerful, and debate the merits of that, I guess.
I guess they can. I don't. Not me. I think it's great. So like, let's listen how much he's changed. Right?
I don't think there's, strictly speaking, anything wrong with that. But again, I think Pat Buchanan is part of the reason it's so hard to have that conversation, because he discredits it by his presence, because he gives people who watch him carefully the sense that he has another agenda that has to do with personal dislike, and that he believes in conspiracies, and that he believes that the Jews are this sinister, secretly organized force trying to affect American politics. And those aren't discussions, I think.
I mean, to his credit, he's come out. I've shown this clip over and over again, where he's like, "Come on, about 9/11. Come on. That's too far. You guys should be silenced and thrown into jail," like this kind of thing. You've seen it. It's this guy Adam versus the Man was asking him questions. He was like one of these kind of old school truthers. Adam versus the Man. He went to Washington, D.C., where you're not allowed to brandish firearms, and he loaded a shotgun on camera, just like an asshole, and he went to jail for like 9 months. And he came back, and his whole crew had looted him of his stuff, stole his Bitcoin, back when Bitcoin was like $1 a piece, like. But, he's come out and reversed his position on these things, and, you get to do that. But why weren't you telling the truth back then? Like, what are your tendencies, right? Your tendencies were to, capitulate to have one of these positions, right? Is to be part of the show. And so, there's this famous movie called Network, where this guy yells, "We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore." He's an anchor in the old school news, and he like starts having these rants, and people are responding to it. But, when you want a seat at the legitimate table, like you want to be legitimized, you have to pay some kind of a price. And he was willing to pay it, and all these people were willing to pay it. If they then realize, hey, guess what? I was bought and sold. I was sheckled up, and I don't want to be anymore. And they come out and they start telling some truth. That's great. But they were once willing to, compromise their integrity and lie to their audience. And, that you got to always remember that. Like, it's great that they've come around, but there's many of us who are on the right side the whole time, right? As soon as we learned about this stuff, we started talking truth, at least up to our ability to understand it. And, and we weren't ever given a seat at the table and didn't really want one. Alex Jones is another one who wants a seat at the table. So, all these people who are promoted by the beast, by the system, there's a reason why. They have to own you. Like I said this about Erica Kirk. They had to get Erica before they did Charlie. They had to make sure they had her. And so she was on board with this thing ahead of time because she had to be. You couldn't have a loose cannon like that and then do what they were going to do, because she was going to be the person that was, the cries of this widow will be heard around the globe. And that shit. So you can have her going after Israel, saying Israel did it, or going after Trump or any of these things. They had to make sure that she was on board, which she clearly is. Because they don't stick a microphone in front of you unless they own you, right? Unless you're 100% shackled up. Okay, so the voiceover I did to my last video, which is now being uploaded, what Erica Trump, Kirk, TP, US Gay, and other shekel takers are demanding you, something like shut up or whatever it is, the full title. So I just uploaded that video. And I said at the end of it about how God in the Old Testament, his number one thing is don't worship anybody else. He's a very jealous God. Like jealousy is his primary, his most dominant quality. And he didn't like idol worship at all. And so this is about the Star of David, and it is the star of your God, Rephan. And so I checked this out, the star of Rephan. Oh, this is not the thing. The star of Rephan. And this is the star. This isn't the Star of David, it's the Star of Rephan. You know, this is kind of well known. You know, it's everywhere here. And this was a god that they worshipped in the stars right here. And so this had nothing to do with David. David was a piece of shit who cut off 200 Philistine foreskins to marry his wife as a dowry. But here we can look at this one here. The Star of Rephan, T.A. took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your God Rephan, figures which Ye made to worship them. This isn't Ye. This isn't Kanye, but it's Ye. You know, this quote, King James Version of the Acts spoken here. Ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch. This refers to the pagan god Moloch, who was worshipped by some ancient peoples. And the star of your God Rephan, this is a reference to the star god Rephan, who identified in the book of Amos as the god named Chiun or Kiyun. Both names refer to the planet Saturn. Figures which Ye made to worship. This emphasizes the Israelites had created and worshipped their own idols, which is in direct violation of God's commands. So in the Old Testament, which is a piece of shit book, God is condemning them for worshiping this star of Rephan, this god of Rephan, and the star symbol that now is the symbol of that religion. So they're not even following the Old Testament bullshit God. They're worshiping these other idols like Saturn worship and this other shit, right? Which is a big thing for the Christians. It shows you how fucking corrupt this is, because the Old Testament's a piece of shit book, and God's a jealous piece of, jealous demon. Not really. It's not really what God is. God that's constantly beating the shit out of Moses and torturing these people and punishing them, the Jews and everybody else, and violent and demanding wars and all this stuff, and weird obsession with foreskins and all this other shit, and all this bizarre stuff that has nothing to do with God and divinity. In fact, it's the opposite. It's demonic. And they don't even adhere to that piece of shit. Like they're going further back and doing the idol worship. So they're getting away from the demon god that they already, they're regressing, right? So that's, very interesting. Like this whole thing here. I mean, just, this idea of being the Saturn and stuff like this. So there's that. So, here's another thing. This YouTube, I don't know who these people are. Ian Carroll and this guy, Elijah Schaefer. And so, Kash Patel's girlfriend is suing these guys. And Twitter recommended this to me. And I was interested by one of the titles. I didn't understand what it was. And so this is what this guy has to say about it here.
That I was being sued for $5 million by Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins. And the reason why might actually shock you. About a couple months ago, I posted this photo on the public social media platform X. I posted it with no caption, no suggestions of any malintent or any slander, defamation, or criticisms of character. I did so attached to an X post shared by another account that I'm not connected to that talked about government agents being compromised. Now Alexis Wilkins is saying that I owe her $5 million for damages, the exact evaluation of my company, and if I cannot come up with that money, that I'm going to have to shut down my business, give up all of my digital assets and my entire voice online in order to pay her back. So why does Kash Patel's girlfriend want to silence me? Well, it comes down to the lawsuit itself. Before anyone jumps to conclusions and says, well, don't say that she's a honeypot, I'd like to say, I never did. I never would. I never felt like suggesting that, never even suggested that in my own head. So why am I?
Why, of course you did. Everybody thinks she's a honeypot.
Being sued for something I never did. To give proof of that, in section 14 of the lawsuit, it states, while the defendant may not have included any caption to spell out the meaning of his post, he didn't have to. Ever since Kash Patel was appointed as director of the FBI in February of 2025, the conspiratorial corners of the internet and social media have been spreading false narratives about Miss Wilkins as an Israeli Mossad agent spy or, quote, honeypot, who is only in the relationship with Kash Patel to spy on and manipulate the United States.
Okay, so they're going after the people that he used to pander to. Kash Patel had a podcast, and he used to come up with these salacious claims, oftentimes bullshit claims. They've pushed all these lies and bullshit things, and now they're going after so-called conspiracy theorists, and Kash Patel is suing these people through his girlfriend. Like, well, what a little bitch, right? I mean, Jesus Christ. Like, what a, nightmare this stuff is. For Republicans, like, you got to realize you got completely owned and played. They're actually much worse. They're going after everybody. They're more into censorship than the left is, and they're more into all these things. Follow the money, seek the truth. This is Ian Carroll. So I was looking for this thing today, and he's got something there, but he's suing for defamation. He's got these pictures of this girl. This photo is slanderous and untrue. Its implications are strongly condemns anyone that downloads it and reposts it. Do not repost it. This post is exclusively to bring awareness to how terrible such island activity is. SRSLY guy, stop it. You're being meanies. That's his girlfriend with some honey pot. And there's a picture somewhere here, I think, of the two of them together. Maybe it's over here. I think that this is the was there a pic? I saw another picture of them together. Oh, there they are together. And there was a picture of them. Oh, he's eating honey. There it is. So look at how it changes from, like, it changes into a spoon. Watch it transform like the Matrix. Watch it. Boom! Comes out like a spoon. That's an AI glitch, right? It starts off with one of those honeycombs, and then boom. That's great. Let's get that. Let's blow that up and let's watch it here. There we go. Ready? It's going to change right into a buddy. Boom! Matrix. It went fucking full Matrix. All right. Like, they're just so petty, and I mean, this is like the God in the Old Testament. Trump's like the God in the Old Testament, a jealous God. Anybody criticizes him, anybody's not with him, he punishes. Like, he's just, except he's half Shekel. He's half Shekel Donnie. Okay, so there's something that I'm going to tie in here. I covered this before, something I usually would cover on the Apocalypse Now channel, but it's part of this whole story. So Miriam Edelson, Trump went to the Knesset in Israel, and he taint-licked Miriam Edelson, who is... Once in a while, it just hits me. The taint-licking. He taint-licked everybody there. Donnie half shekels Trump. And Miriam Edelson was married to whatever that guy's name, Sheldon Edelson. And they own a bunch of casinos in Vegas. And she was responsible for a lot of the Trump support. She gave Trump $100 million for Israel, amongst other people. And he singles her out particularly. Miriam Edelson is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, a professional basketball team she purchased a majority stake in from Mark Cuban in late 2023 for $3.5 billion. Now, Cuban still owns like 30%, 20%. And it was his whole life. Mark Cuban's a weird dude who's also Jewish. But and they were going to build a casino in Dallas that never happened. So they were going to build a big arena, something like that, the arena in Dallas, I think they're redoing, and then they're going to build a casino there. But it ended up not going through. These are casino owners. And so Mark Cuban got completely, he got his nuts clipped because he said he was going to run the team for the next foreseeable future, and then that didn't happen. So they end up having this guy run the team here. This guy right here. So you're yelling fire Nico here. There's Nico Harrison. So he's the general manager. He's the guy that ends up trading for this whole thing. So during the game, he sits down, he talks to this guy. Now this kid gave this is the guy who's the president of the team, who's running the team for Marion Edelson. And I don't know what his name is. It doesn't matter. But this kid at the opening day gave the guy the finger, and his dad saw him. So he said, you got to go apologize to him. Again, there's all these empty seats. This is the court row seats that are playing the Milwaukee Bucks. And the kid comes up and apologizes to him. The guy says, well, sit down. And the guy says, I fucked up when we traded Luka Doncic, right? I fucked up. And this seems like a staged thing. This guy's only been to 2 games, the opening day where this guy gave him the finger, and this day where they're talking, right? So it seems like performative bullshit kind of thing. The next day he fires this guy, Nico Harrison. And so, the fans, they had lost their fans. Their brand was damaged. This kid, the Lakers aren't even playing, right? So, the whole narrative was that Luka Doncic was overweight and wouldn't stick to a diet and wouldn't play defense. So Nico Harrison said he traded him, in the middle of the night, it was a shock trade that nobody could believe. And the Lakers, who always somehow end up getting relevancy because they're one of the number one sports franchises, not just basketball franchises, and brands in the world. And they just sold their team from a family-owned team of people who weren't that rich to billionaire money, some of it from Dubai, for $10 billion, right? And that was right after they got this guy, So this is all shady, rigged business stuff. And this kid's wearing a Luka shirt, and they're not even playing. Lots of people are wearing Laker Luka shirts and cheering fire Nico. And, and the whole thing was staged and set up, right? I mean, it wasn't, they're trying to say, why would he make this trade? Well, because the league wanted to make the Lakers relevant. And then Luka lost a bunch of weight. He's leading the league in scoring and playing great. And the Dallas Mavericks, even though they got the number 1 pick, Cooper Flagg, which seems to be completely rigged because they were supposed to get the 11th pick. They were the 11th worst team, but somehow through the bullshit rigged NBA lottery, they got the number 1 pick, who was Cooper Flagg, who's going to be a great player. But that wasn't enough for the Mavericks, so they fired him, right? And, all this manipulative shit, all this stuff where all these, posturing, all this fake stuff, all this, these posing moments, all this bullshit that they do, WWE style, narratives and drama. Fire Nico. This guy's Nico Harrison. Now, Nico Harrison did make this call. He had actually made he revived Kyrie Irving's career. He got Kyrie Irving, and they went to the NBA Finals. And he clearly was doing this. Mark Cuban said he would never trade Luka. No one would trade Luka Doncic, especially not only was it a bad idea to trade him at all, but they got nothing for him, right? They got a guy whose nickname is Street Clothes because he's always hurt so much, in Anthony Davis. And, they have a horrible, this is Luka Doncic. But this all involves Miriam Edelson, right? The Edelsons. Miriam Edelson, right? She's wearing a Dallas Mavericks shirt here. This Knesset going, all this stuff. They're a part of all these things, right? Manipulating politics and this whole stuff with stuff with Israel here. She is getting a Medal of Freedom from Trump, even though she's really an Israeli citizen that's taking money from the American people and funneling it back to Israel so they can buy politicians, all this kind of stuff, right? It's just all this icky stuff. It's like on every level. This icky, manipulative business stuff, things that don't make sense. These people in Dallas had an attachment to Luka Doncic, and they traded him, and it doesn't mean anything. And then they have this patsy, Nico Harrison, who would have, is going to be basically banned for the league. They gave him the number 1 pick in Cooper Flagg, but it still didn't matter, right? Because fire Nico, because they're just not ready to, the fans, but the fans have been given something. They made this guy the patsy, and now that he's fired, the fans can go, all right, we got our fucking pound of flesh, and now they'll go back into being, who are they going to hate on, right? Like everything's generated. Nico, who clearly wasn't the person that made this decision. He's just the patsy. And they waited long enough for the fans to get their anger out. This is like dispelling the mob. Like the mob, this is the whole, where the mob demands something and you give it to them, and then everyone goes. It's like a pressure cooker, releases the steam. But it's the and all the players, like the players are trying to win a game. There's a guy shooting foul shots late in the game that were pivotal to winning the game, and they're yelling "Fire Nico!" It's a home game, and they're not even they want to lose, right? They're like rooting for their team to lose, which is affecting the team and the players. But they've been given this thing now, and now they can move on. Just like they throw these patsy out there, and they get everyone's anger riled up, and then they use some, patsy or some, fake justice to dispel the anger and control the crowd and the mob again, right? This is a, textbook fucking manipulation, left-right paradigm shit, right? This is very typical problem, reaction, solution. They create a problem, the people react to it, and then they give you a solution that they already had in place, and now it's, it's accepted, right? It's like, all right, this is, now we can release our anger. I mean, look at this fucking ghoul here. Like again, she's in her, 80s. There she is with Mark Cuban. They really fucked Cuban. Cuban thought he was going to be a part of this. Now he has more of a role. But, nothing about basketball. Doesn't give a shit about Dallas. Trying to build a casino. They own casinos, which is a very criminal, shady business. There she is with her husband, Sheldon Adelson, who's now dead. But these are the people that sheckled up Trump, and then other people. All right, so there's that. So Chris Jansing reports.
There's new internal turmoil.
That's Chris Jansing.
The Justice Department today with details from MSNBC's exclusive reporting. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, a Trump appointee, called a rare division-wide meeting yesterday after the resignation of 2 prosecutors. A source familiar with internal concerns among career prosecutors tells MSNBC those prosecutors are afraid of being asked to work on a case that President Trump says should lead to the arrests of some of his most high-profile adversaries, among them former President Barack Obama and former CIA Director John Brennan.
So this is what I was talking about, the Old Testament God, that if you are against me, you get punished, right? Now, going after Barack Obama is problematic. He preceded Trump, and maybe he undermined Trump a little bit, like they all, that both parties do. But he really didn't do anything to go after Trump. Trump wasn't a viable political candidate until he was, and then the rest of everything that happened in 2016, and going after Obama, that's like going to cross a line. If he went after Biden, who pardoned everyone but himself, in the Biden administration, it would make more sense, because you can make a case that they went after Trump, even though it was bogus and performative. But you get to the point where this is like Russia, where so the political opponents get killed or thrown in jail. Some guy could be in jail for committing treason, and a month later he's president, because that's how what happens. That these politicians are, they're all on the verge of being killed or locked up. Like, we start locking up all the politicians, and they all deserve to be locked up. I'm not against that, but when it becomes partisan in this way, it fucks the whole country more than than it's already fucked. It'd be funny though. It'd be interesting, because as soon as Trump is gone, all the Trumpies are all they're all being sued right now. They're all going to be under criminal investigation. The problem is the left will swing back hard, and they'll push more of that agenda. There'll be more censorship on the, as much as Trump is censoring one way, there'll be censorship the other way. It's just going to all suck. Trump is making this more and more polarized.
Joining me from the White House with his exclusive reporting is MSNBC's Vaughn Hilliard. Barbara McQuaid is here, an MSNBC legal analyst and former U.S. attorney. Independent journalist Philip Bump joins me here on set. Vaughn, walk us through your exclusive reporting.
Yeah, along with our colleague here at the White House, Laura Barone Lopez, we have from sources that down in the Southern District of Florida, Jason Redding Quinones, he is the U.S. attorney who was picked by Donald Trump to lead that office in Miami this past August, that he is effectively overseeing what is amounting to a sprawling investigation, a conspiracy investigation. And this is important. Folks are going to continue to hear about this.
But not about Epstein, right? Not about Israel, like about some bullshit thing here. They're doing anything to stop this. The Epstein stuff is coming back around now. Trump has had his, the Israeli deal and the Charlie Kirk stuff and all the things and the government shutdown to stop the Epstein stuff from coming back around, but it's coming back around. Okay, so they're starting to release things. Let's get into this here about Trump knowing about Epstein, which of course he did.
Pause that conversation to get back to this breaking news we just teased. Just moments ago, the House Oversight Committee released never-before-seen emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate, which include correspondence between Epstein and his longtime co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, currently incarcerated on sex trafficking charges. Let's now bring in MSNBC Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delanian, who has been digging through these emails. Ken, what have we learned so far?
Good morning, Jonathan. Well, look, the Epstein estate has released some 23,000 emails, and House Democrats have been poring over them, and they found some correspondence directly mentioning Donald Trump by name. They've released 3 of these emails, and they're quite interesting. The first one was between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein back in 2011, where Epstein wrote that Donald Trump spent hours at my house with an unnamed victim of sex trafficking, whose name is redacted in the email. And Epstein referred to Trump as the dog that hasn't barked. And then in a separate email years later with author Michael Wolff in 2019,
I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked in Trump, victim spent hours at the house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chiefs, etc. So this is from 2011, and this is after Trump was. When did Jeffrey Epstein get investigated? I think he was criminally charged in 2006 or 7. So this is after that, right? So this is saying to Ghislaine Maxwell, like he has leverage over Trump.
Epstein said explicitly that Donald Trump, quote, knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. And then the Democrats cite another email with Wolff in 2015 where Epstein...
Wait, so this is... This is from Jeffrey Epstein in 2019. When did he die? I thought he died before then. I don't know what that is, but anyways.
15, where Epstein and Wolff are discussing if they can craft an answer for an upcoming Donald Trump interview. And Wolff sort of suggests that Epstein has leverage over Donald Trump, saying if he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, then that gives you valuable PR and political currency. Now, look, Jeffrey Epstein, it was a manipulative monster, and so you really can't take anything he says.
Why would you even say this? That's a qualifying, that's putting one of those blurbs that YouTube puts under your video, fact-checking yourself or whatever. Trump knew about Epstein. There's just, like he said, he likes young girls. They spent lots of time together. There's a mountain of evidence. They were best buddies. They hung out. Many pictures of them together. Jeffrey Epstein's brother said that Trump said things like Jeffrey Epstein's brother said he was on the plane with Epstein. And Epstein had already told him this. He told him that Trump had said, he asked Trump, why does he like to sleep with married women? And Trump says it because it's so wrong. Trump was groping and walking in on young girls in the dressing room at Miss USA, Miss Teen USA. Said that he got to do that because he owned the pageant, so he get away with it. All that stuff he said. He said creepy thing after creepy thing. And that Jeffrey Epstein likes young girls is the most, And we know he knew. He had to know. They all knew. All these people knew. These aren't secrets because these people, this isn't uncommon behavior for these elites, these people. And if you're not down with this behavior, or if you're not partaking, you still know about it. Like these people all knew. Anybody around Jeffrey Epstein, anybody spent any time around him, or knew, of him, the people who, would gossip and talk about this, this was common knowledge. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't hiding this because these people, these upper echelon people, do shit like this all the time. It's just for whatever reason he ended up getting busted, and then all these other things happen with it. But he had leverage because, it's like these guys in the CIA. There's that movie with Barry Seal. Tom Cruise plays Barry Seal, American Made or something like that, I think it's called. And he gets busted by some cops, and he says, "You're about to receive a phone call telling you to let me go." And they're all laughing, and then they get a phone call from like the president or somebody. And so, this is like an open secret, right? So of course Trump knew, and it's whether these emails are real or not. Why would he write them? So that they can be discovered later on, right? These are not emails he thought were going to be, certainly in his lifetime, were going to be released.
To the bank here. But this is important evidence that people trying to understand what Donald Trump's relationship was with Jeffrey Epstein and what his role was and where he was and did he go to the house. This is important evidence that fills in some blanks on that picture. The Democrats believe there are more to come from these emails that have been released by the Epstein estate. John.
And we should note our friend Joyce Vance notes on Twitter just now, because she's also pouring through these emails, that one of them dates from 2011 when Epstein would have had really little incentive to lie, and it's well before Trump's political career, of course. So this is...
Yeah, there's no reason for him to lie when he was, writing these emails, because they're personal emails, and some of them, I'm sure he's putting incriminating things in there himself. Again, a guy who he had a lot of leverage over a lot of people. We know because the Epstein files have not been released by Democrats or Republicans, and there's going to be stuff in there about Trump, and Trump knows it. And then Trump associates. It could be a cascade of whatever it is, and shit's going to come out one way or another. And we know Trump's fucked because they had to murder Charlie Kirk to stop this from happening the first time, right? And this is getting into like wag the dog type of territory. So it's coming back around again. And, hopefully that they haven't lost the momentum, the people who are pushing for this. But, at some point, everyone's going to know, Trump's going to say it's fake news, and his fucking, his dumb fuck followers, dumb fuckistan followers are going to just, he can do no wrong. We know that, right? The ones that he said he could shoot someone in the face on Fifth Avenue and wouldn't lose any supporters. They'll just rearrange reality, and they'll come up with some bullshit, crazy argument. They'll say how Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, and Trump himself has, said, well, that was because they were poaching people, workers. They were poaching these girls from his club, which is also kind of incriminating, but not because of he found out about the creepy behavior, and also because there was a real estate deal that they were both competing for. So there was some, whatever that was. But, it's not going to do anything. Like, that's the sick part about this. There'll be information where everyone kind of realizes there's enough information now. Trump and Epstein were buddies, and Trump knew, right? Other than Trump admitting it, it's just right there. And, the picture that was there, that's got to come back around. Trump has a lawsuit about that, but everyone knows it's his picture now as part of that book where he wrote his name in the pubic hair of a girl. That's all fucking incriminating weird shit, right? They all knew this is what they do. This is what these people engage in.
Ken, the story that Donald Trump just wants to go away, and he's done a pretty good job, I guess, of telling MAGA.
Anyways, so they'll, we'll see how this plays out. We know that they'll go to any length to, the MAGA people. But other than that, there's a degraded morality. But, how can Trump fight bad guys and elite when he was an elite, right? At the very least, he was an elite who was, if he didn't partake, he was complicit and didn't stand up for any of these girls. He knew what was going on and didn't stop Epstein. In fact, he didn't think anything wrong with it. There was not anything wrong with it. And we know that about a lot of different things. We know this about his relationship with all these billionaires and other people. There's all this weird shit. We know this because of his giving Israel everything that they wanted so that they could murder Palestinian babies, right? So, we know what kind of moral compass the guy has. He's elitist, and his people will either realize this or not, and it's just, they'll pretend that it isn't true, Fox News and the Trumpers. But everyone should know this, they're all elitist and they're all fucking murderous, horrible people. They're the worst of the worst. They have no regard for anything. Certainly not religious or don't believe in God in the real way. Either they've embraced their demonic nature or they doubt the existence of God. They're not any of these things that they pretend to be. And so, but again, I don't think it'll make a difference because it's just going to go this way.
Within MAGA over the future of the American conservative movement. It comes as far-right influencer Nick Fuentes recently recorded a cordial interview at the invitation of Tucker Carlson that more than 5 million people have viewed. This is the same Fuentes who was once barred from nearly every social media platform for violating.
So we know all about this. And they're talking about, I didn't know what, I saw the title. Inside the brewing MAGA divide.
On its face. But this is also something that's persisted within MAGA over the course of the last 10 years. I mean, I remember. Yeah,
it's imploding. It's almost, I didn't know this was about that. I wasn't going to cover that because that has to do with the Candace Owens stuff as well. The Ben Shapiro, he went on. I saw a little clip with Ben Shapiro on with Megyn Kelly. And they're all fine. I mean, like I said, these people are all flirting with truther narratives, but they're not truthers. They're part of the beast. They're controlled and they're whatever they are. But the inside of the MAGA movement, I mean, this was Charlie Kirk was at the center within himself of the conflict. He was taking shekels on one hand and wanted to take more shekels. On the other hand, all these young Republicans were starting to turn on Israel. So, this is what's up, right? This is going to be, unresolved conflict now. And they always come together to vote or not vote for their party. I mean, there's the Bernie Sanders, liberal socialists, and then there's the more conservative, mainstream Democrats, and they hate each other and they go to war with each other, and the liberals, the liberal socialists always lose. It's just a constant. This is what happens, right? And if they ever win, when you have extremism, it always goes south, right? As long as there's some more moderation there. But the moderation is gone now because of the contentiousness and the divide that's in America. And so, it's just nothing's going to happen. Until, our system collapses, it'll just limp along it's low functioning, where it's a terminally ill patient, right? But it'll survive for as long as it survives, and then we have to deal with when it doesn't.
Hi, me in 10 years.
Hey, me in 10 years. Hey, me. Hey, me. This is Mr. Beast, the #1 YouTuber, whose parents are embedded in the military-industrial complex, which, explains a lot. But, I mean, this guy is such a dweeb. Speaking of low testosterone.
Hi, me in 10 years. I'm going to schedule upload this video 10 years in the future. So you're going to see this in 2025. It's 2015 for me right now. Dude, what if I'm dead? Dude, if I'm... Ooh, that would be weird. That'd be so weird.
It'd be so weird. So, it's weird. You're weird, dude.
Rip. That'd be really weird. But, so, let's see. Dude, if I don't have 1 million subscribers when you see this video, my entire life has been a failure. I hope I have 1 million subs.
Yeah, so, this guy, it's just a weird thing to do, right? I guess maybe other people are doing this, but, how did this guy get to be the #1 YouTuber if there wasn't some manipulation? He was so weird. I guess it's par for the course. These testosterone-less beta males that flock to this kind of content. Okay, look at this expression. It's in the middle of the thing. This is just, I paused it. this is your alternative, right? This is going to be their guy. Another expression. Just, just such like a punchable face.
Nothing.
Oh, wait, let's turn this down here.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you.
I mean, just this smug fuck in his face. His hair is dishonest, right? Like this guy is reeking fucking. I mean, he's being so condescending here, and
nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you, and we all just sit there rolling our eyes, going, "Give me a break."
We all do. We all do. Just those one politician, those few politicians, 10% of those politicians that out lie, right? Like, and everything about him is just so dishonest. He's just so fake and just he has a great ad campaign that I know he didn't come up with, his team did, where they post tweets very similar to the way Donald Trump would do it, and those things are funny, and that's a good thing he's doing. But he is just the greasiest piece of shit, right? I mean, I think Kamala is preferable to him. Like, and he's the guy right now. He's their front runner, and he ran the state into the ground. Another person was failing upwards, coming out of California. So speaking of beta males, the TPUS gay. So they have 5.66 million subscribers, and let's say they have 3 million legitimate subscribers. Let's say all of them or all of them, whatever it is. We can refresh this here. And so there's Mikey McCoy, who they're rolling out here quite a bit. But, he's already somebody that the people don't trust. Going back to this thing with Nico Harris, right? Nico Harris was a fall guy for what happened with, the Dallas Mavericks. But clearly this was some kind of staged thing, and, they were talking about how they had to fire the guy, and the owner had to come out and basically do this performative, interaction with a fan, just to say they had lost, they had destroyed the brand. I mean, the fans were yelling when the team was had a chance of winning the game. They were yelling, "Fire Nico!" Like it's just the brand is damaged there. Like, it's just a horrible thing that they did. And so this guy Mikey McCoy, because of all the controversy, not all of it is coming from Candace Owens. I mean, people are finding out, the fact that he looked like he was on the phone. I mean, clearly he was on the phone. And then they came up with like this bullshit story, amongst other things, and then all of the damaging stuff that's coming out about his dad. The Youth Awakening, brought to you by Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's predictions come true. So they have 7,000 views, 8,000 views, 13,000 views, 13,000 views, 18,000 views, 23,000 views. They bump these things up, 4,000 views here, right? I mean, I think they're doing artificial, they have millions of subscribers and they're getting nothing for, and I'm sure a lot of these, democracy is toxic. 5 minutes of Charlie Kirk at his very best. This whole thing, right-wing civil war, this thing with Nick Fuentes, and they can't get anything. They can't get any love here, no matter what they put out here. It's just they're not getting anything. But here's this guy. So this is Selena Zito. They're going to go to Mikey McCoy here in a second.
And so I think it's a very interesting thing that is happening in the country.
Yeah, and Mikey, you went with Charlie to just about every single campus stop. I mean, maybe you missed a few over the last couple of years, but we saw this firsthand. You saw it firsthand. What was it about Charlie's message that you could tell was just connecting? That moment where the eyes light up and the
So, to the majority of, I mean, we're talking about this video's like 5,000, whatever, 7,000 views. Even if they're getting 20,000 views, they have 450 employees and, like a $20 million payroll, right? So, they can't survive on that shit. Like, they're not going to, even as much as they're doing to repair the damage with these Israeli donors, they don't have any influence. I mean, it's just a shell corporation, and if they, the positions they're taking, they're hemorrhaging viewers. And this guy Mikey McCoy is like, in the Pastor McCoy and the rest of there's three McCoys in this, right? Then there's the Hatfields, Candace Owens and the Hatfields, and the Hatfields are kicking the McCoys' asses. And so why bring this guy out on the show? You already have two guys who are unlikable, two, beta males sharing one testicle, that guy Andrew and that guy Blake. These guys who are very effeminate gay dudes. They're just effeminate dudes. And no one likes them. And they don't have any, they wouldn't have an audience. I mean, they're losing the audience that exists, and they can't create their own audience. They don't have fans. They don't people want to listen to them. And so the show sucks. Like if you're only getting 10,000 views, and I mean, who knows the quality of the views? That's nothing to something as big as this thing used to be. We're talking about $100 million company, and so why would you roll this guy out? Like, I mean, their decisions and everything they're doing with Erica Kirk and the rest of it, it seems like they must be doing this intentionally. They can't be this incompetent, right?
There's just that aha moment with young people.
Here's the hero, Mikey McCoy.
Yeah, there's this great clip of Charlie debating a leftist, and he's talking about how
he's debating a leftist. He likes to debate those leftists. He debates those leftists. Sometimes the leftists, Charlie would debate those leftists, and they would debate them. And I liked when Charlie debated the leftists.
Yeah, there's this great clip of Charlie debating a leftist, and he's talking about how Wall Street is purchasing a bunch of the homes. And Charlie agrees with him that should not happen. And the leftist kind of goes, I agree with you. And so Charlie was kind of the only one who was able to capture the energy of this youth populism that you referred to here. But this is also a warning sign for us that now, with Charlie being gone, Turning Point, Erica, under her leadership, has done a great job with these events last night at Berkeley.
Yes, the events, they're so great, these events.
Auburn, Ole Miss, and just helping capture that energy, but also the future of the political movement and the economic reality of under 30s. And so you see dark political radicalization setting in for a lot of these youth. I mean, 3 of the biggest assassins in the past 12 months have been Gen Z. And so you saw the YouGov poll that says, political violence is acceptable.
There's these really big assassins that are coming up, these assassins?
From 18 to 36-year-olds. And so you kind of see this radicalization of the youth, but then you also see it with their economic reality. Rents are at an all-time high.
All right, so you get it. They're failing intentionally, like they've imploded. Who's gonna this guy is not gonna appeal to people, and there's all this suspicion surrounding him. And so why put a microphone in front of him? Like, to make the other guys look better? Like, what do you... This is just, it's just the wrong way to go about this whole thing. Okay. So it's Thursday, November 13th. I'm just going to add this to the video. There's some more stuff with the Epstein stuff coming out. I'll cover that today for my next video. With Trump. People keep on writing comments about not trusting Candace Owens. And it's just, not listening to the point of view of this YouTube channel, right? People are saying that to me or whatever it is. The people that come and go in this show, whether it be Kyrie Irving, standing up for the unvaccinated, or the whatever you want to call it, the anti-vaxxers or whatever, or Tucker Carlson changing from being a complete dick to a partial dick, just some whatever it is. Like, I got stuff to cover with him today, for my next video as well. Some guy asked him to throw Candace Owens under the bus, and his reaction is kind of funny. But if somebody says something funny, it cracks me up, right? When they're in the show, or they say something that's along the lines with what we believe. It doesn't matter whether they are a shill or not, because everybody's a shill. And I'm going to read a comment about this. because, everyone's taking shekels to whatever extent because we live in a monetary system. We live in an ego-driven system. We live in a system where people are competitive and are self-interested and selfish. We're taught to be that way. It brings out the worst in us. It's a system it's based in egoism, as opposed to a system that's based in your soul. And we don't know what that's like because most people don't even think about their soul at all and don't care about it. And so, never mind ever be aware of a system. There's been time periods here on planet Earth, and there are systems now where the soul is the centerpiece. The life of your soul is the centerpiece, right? But in all that, you have these people in the show. And if they do something that's, exposes some level of truth, or they're doing work on the thing, that, regardless of its ultimate failure, because all this stuff's going to fail, there's no way to save the system. That's the point of view of this channel. There's no way to save the system because when the system comes down, it's a good thing. It's a bad thing for us as people, as egos, as our habits, our lifestyle. It fucks us in various ways because of, we're 100% dependent on it. But it is a good thing. It is a bad system, and it's taking people in the wrong direction. And it'll be divine intervention when the system comes down. And the carnage of this system coming down is going to be horrific. It just is. It's just something, sometimes in life you just have to eat shit, and we're going to all collectively eat it when the system, implodes based in its depravity. But it has to come down, right? It's like this whole idea of too big to fail, too depraved to fail, right? Because everyone's been warped by a fucked up system. We should keep it going. And so that's the point of view of this channel. So none of this stuff matters. There's no fucking shills. There's no, there's no bad guys. There's no good guys. There's people who are 100% addicted to a demonic system. And what happens when it collapses? That's what this channel is about. And, what's the opposite of that? What's the opposite of being addicted to the system? Well, it's being in service of God and finding your soul's path. And nobody wants to hear that shit. So, whatever. I say things that I know is just going to fall on deaf ears because, people are not interested in the solution. So, there you go. And so, if Candace Owens does something good, and she is doing good stuff right now, because the whole TPUSK and the whole thing with Israel and all that stuff is coming out. It's not going to affect anything. There's no long-term benefit, in terms of, it's the system itself can't be fixed. And system doesn't investigate itself. And there's going to be no accountability in terms of, people going to jail or any kind of significant change in the dynamics here until things actually happen that are out of anybody's control, which is, undesirable for everybody, because that means you're not going to be able to keep going with life the way it is, because there'll be disruptions to your lifestyle. So in that, let's watch this clip here.
And when people start panicking in that way, they're just alarms. Okay, you have to think of these people as alarms, and you should understand that you're getting close to something. And what I've learned has been pretty incredible. So going back to our timeline, I will remind you, it was July 18th. According to the local Utah News, they found this out. It was July 18th that UVU Turning Point chapter requested to have Charlie speak. That is very late in the day for a request. They're usually backed up entire semesters. Well, guess how quickly Turning Point headquarters not only approved it, but then sent people to campus to begin scouting a location almost immediately in early August. Within 2 weeks, they had boots on the ground and they were scouting for a location, and it gets worse, okay? I learned that after UVU showed them multiple options, inside and outside, UVU recommended to Turning Point that they not hold the event in the amphitheater because of safety reasons. Not a good idea.
Okay, so in the beginning of this thing, Candace Owens goes out of her way to show clips of Megyn Kelly defending her and Tucker Carlson saying things that, about Israel and things about, not Israel, about, well, Israel, but about Charlie Kirk, things that they said These are clips that I've already included in this video. So she's showing some of the same clips I am. And her big point was that, Ben Shapiro came on and said that she said that Erica Kirk was responsible and had Charlie Kirk murdered, and that she's praised Erica Kirk and all these things. And these people are backing her up on that. But they're all three being pieces of shit. And I'm not including that here because, well, I'm talking about it, but I'm not including all that stuff because, that's them being lame, right? That's them not going all the way. Because I said something maybe 2 videos ago, 3 videos ago, that makes total sense. Not because I said it, but just think about it. If they are staging something, if they are going to stage something, if they're going to, assassinate Charlie Kirk, the one person they know they have to have on their side is Erica. She has to be owned. She has to be compromised. They know that she can't be running around as a grieving widow calling out them doing it. Like, she can't turn on them. She can't do anything that's going to shine light on what they just did. So if they did what Candace Owens is saying, that people assassinated him, and then they threw this patsy out there, they need Erica Kirk to be on board. It's 100%. There's no way you do that thing if you don't have her already. They don't leave out. These guys are controllers, what I call controllers, which I'm going to get into when I talk about the comment section in a bit, right? And so they have to control everything. They have to control the variables. And Erica Kirk is the biggest variable. Like, that just makes total sense, right? Like, that stuff you get here that you're not going to get anywhere else. Like, anybody who's watching this thing, people have their different theories. Is Charlie Kirk still alive? I'm going to get, because someone left a goofy comment about that yesterday. I just remembered when I started talking about this that I really want to let into. And so, there's these variables that have to be controlled. And so she has to be controlled. And so Candace Owens is doing a good job now. Like, at the beginning, she's saying stuff that's stupid. Like, she won't go after Erica Kirk. They have these lines of things they won't do, whatever it is. Who knows why there's these distinctions. Well, this is an area where we're not going to pursue the truth with Erica Kirk, but everyone else is looking at it and going, she's fake as fuck. Why are you not saying anything to Candace? Right? And that is whatever it is. So that's, you can't expect the unadulterated truth with these people because they're part of the show and they're handled and they have their own, reason for whatever. They have their own boundaries and things that are put in place by their handler, whatever it might be. But what she's saying here is valuable because she has shown that when she has said these things, that there is some legitimacy to them that the other side can't debunk. Like, some of her big stuff is she put things out there and they say, these people come out and say it's all fake, and then she shows the receipts. That's her whole deal, right? And what she's saying here is that there was a request from this place where Charlie Kirk was assassinated to have a event there, and they did it at the last minute. And TPUS Gay went out there and scouted it and made it happen. And now she's talking about how that they recommended the people at the university, whatever, the Utah, whatever it is, said that they thought it should go inside. And she's going to talk about why that is better for safety, right, here. And this is incriminating, right? This is incriminating. It's not enough to convict anybody. It's not enough to change the narrative. It's not enough to save the patsy. But it is more evidence that's convicting that this was pre-planned, and that they pursued this thing because they knew that Charlie Kirk was going to be killed. Again, whether he's dead or not, all these things. But this is part of the story, right? This is part of the narrative. The official story is that there was a lone gunman who was, disgruntled person because he was having an affair with a transgender dude. And he was, all the things that they said. He was radicalized by the liberal left. And he got his grandfather's rifle and assembled it on a roof and shot Charlie Kirk through the neck with this high-powered caliber 30-06 bullet that goes through multiple mooses, but somehow Charlie's bone density stopped it from going through him and hitting somebody else. It was a miracle bullet. That stuff all blew up, right? Like all that part of the story. all these things that are unrealistic. And so now you know that there's, within his own organization, they set this thing up so that the shooting could take place, right? That they last minute slapped this thing together, and then here's the last part of that.
Because we can't shut this area down. It's not a good idea because there's no control here. We cannot control the traffic, the flow of traffic coming in and out of this amphitheater. But Turning Point insisted that that was where they wanted to have the event. It was because Turning Point insisted that that event was then held outside. Now, I can tell you, having done these events, that was the first thing among many that struck me as odd, is anybody can just walk into that's the whole point of safety, is you want to make sure that these students, you're checking tickets, you have security looking at them up and down. Do they look weird? Who are we supposed to keep eyes on? This guy's weird. Let's watch this guy because he's mumbling to himself. The whole point of that, the reason why you feel safe going to a Turning Point event, is because not everybody can just walk up and sit down when they want to, okay? You want to look people in the eye. Suddenly, that didn't matter to them. Turning Point insisted on having the event outside, despite UVU saying they communicated to them, they did not think the outside was the best idea because of safety reasons. So my question now is...
Okay, so again, they're slapping this together, and then the Patsy didn't have a lot of time for prep for this, right? And so whatever time he learned about the venue. And again, we saw this with the bullshit Trump assassination attempt. They had one roof to clear. Like, when the police have to clear a building and make sure that there's nobody up there. They clear a room, they clear a building. And so there was one roof that had access, like to Trump. And then there was a limited angle towards him in the stage. There was the big screen that Trump said saved his life that was blocking or potential shooter's view of Trump. And he had, these snipers, these Secret Service snipers behind him that were looking right at that roof, right? Where there was a kid up there with a viewfinder and a fucking rifle, and they were looking at him for 8 minutes and didn't do anything about it. And so, that's part of the Trump fake assassination bullshit story. But when you had this UVU event, this amphitheater, there was multiple rooftops that were looking at Charlie Kirk, and it turns out that according to her, that there was a lower caliber bullet. But this is like the part she said earlier about Erica Kirk not being a part of it, and her not accusing her, bragging about it, and her getting love from Megyn Kelly on that subject, who went after Ben Shapiro, not only when he said that bullshit, but when she was asked the question on the following day, when she had time to look into it and find out that Candace Owens said the opposite, right? And so, and that's bullshit, because of course, they have to get Erica Kirk if that's part of it, right? You have to have these things in place to pull off a successful fake event, right? Where you have to have a patsy, you have to have the person who's most going to be grieving, which is the widow. You have to have all these people on board that are going to perpetrate the fraud, right? And so, whatever is really going on here with all this stuff. Let me switch over to a voiceover now. So I said in a recent video, in terms of this stuff, I don't care about this truth, whatever the true story of Charlie Kirk's thing is. I don't care if he's alive or dead. I don't care if he's, what exactly happened. All I know is what they're presenting is a bunch of bullshit. And I know, and the reason I don't care about it, your mind naturally wants resolution. Your mind wants things to be resolved. That's how the human mind works. If things are left, this is the whole thing about having cliffhangers, like the TV show Lost, that would reveal would explain one part of the mystery, and then there'd be 3 more, new things that were unresolved, right? They would solve one thing, and then they would put out these other things, and then they had to wrap it up. And it's well, they're all dead, like that's how they resolved all of it. And it was all meaningless, right? There was no point to any of it, right? There was nothing there. They all died in a plane crash. What? So you didn't have a way to resolve something. You just were you're stringing people along, and this is what happens in the truth community. There's this thing, I think it's called a red herring. There's all these red herrings. There's all these Easter eggs, and they just fucking throw these things out here. You know, it's to some extent what Candace Owens is doing. But there's no real resolution. But I can say 100%, no matter what this thing, and what's the motivation. So unless they come out and just tell you the truth about everything to do with Charlie Kirk from the very beginning, when they created the guy, and, you know, his influence and Israel's influence, and then all the things and all the timing, and, is he really alive? Is he dead? Like all these things. They told you why they did it then, all the aspects, why they picked this particular Patsy, what was going on in the news cycle, what was the motivation, what was the goal of their action, what was, who was involved, all the different people, all the different agencies, all the different levels of involvement, the intelligence community, the people at TPUSK, Erica Kirk, Trump, J.D. Vance, all these people, all the venues, all the things, all the planning, all the people who knew, all the people who were a part of it, all of it, like all the details. You would get bored. It would go on forever. Like you'd be bored with the, all the, like if they showed you all the taped conversations, all the planning of this thing, how long, how far it went back. And you'd be like, oh my God, let's get to the point, right? And so there is no point. Like there's no point to any of these things, right? Charlie Kirk was a Shekel taking shill. There's people leaving comments saying to me that, Turning Point sucks. It's dead since Charlie Kirk is dead. I'm like, it was dead before. The guy was taking shekels to lie to college kids and other things and promote a fucking piece of shit in Trump who's betrayed everything that his supporters have wanted him to do, and he promised that he was going to do. All the things that were implied, all the things that they thought he was going to do. He's doing the exact opposite, and they still aren't doing shit about it. And so Candace Owens specifically, and then these other people, Megyn Kelly, who are all hard to watch, and, Megyn Kelly, who went at it with Trump during his first election, is, doing everything in her power to keep his name and Erica Kirk's name out of this. They're great. I just saw something with Nancy Mace, or that Mace woman from, I think, South Carolina, defending Trump on Epstein, like just all this bullshit, right? Tucker Carlson. But what Candace Owens is particularly doing here is she won't let them close the case, and there's millions of people who aren't buying into the story, and Turning Point is getting fucked by this, and the more that they try to close this thing down and, reboot and do whatever they do, and there's no way they can do it. And so that's kind of funny. It's kind of interesting to watch. And Israel is on the hook with this, and people have just turned on Israel and the relationship, and things are coming out now that they're never going to be able to reverse. This relationship is, permanently damaged, and that's, a good thing. It's not going to save America. It's not going to save the system. It's not going to turn things around, but it's, it's interesting to watch. That's about it, like how it plays out. But, when it plays out, it's going to be disappointing. It's like a kind of a well-written, good movie that can't deliver a quality ending, because if a logical ending isn't the hero wins and everybody goes home happy, right? A logical ending to this system, if you look at all the people, from the bottom all the way up to the top in terms of, the pyramidal system of control in our system, that, this system's not salvageable and shouldn't be saved. The system is hurting people, which I've said over and over again. It's making us worse, and it's taking us generationally down a level of less, like we're less than we were before. We're weaker, more entitled. We're, just the breaking up of the family, the disconnection from God, the depression, and just all the, we're less and less capable as human beings, and we're going in the wrong direction on every measurable standard. Or it's idiocracy, like getting stupider. And so, it's negatively affecting the people. And so if a system's taking you away from divinity, taking away from your soul's path, taking you away from what it means to be a human being, and taking you in a direction where you're becoming less, you're becoming worse, you're becoming like zoo animals, you're no longer doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you were designed to do, and you're, failure, then that system is a bad system. It needs to go. It's an anti-God system. It's an anti-human system. And so it's doing what it's supposed to do, and that's to make us worse. Whatever reason that's, out there, that's what it's doing. And so let me get to these comments here. Here I got, this is the one I want to focus on. I don't remember what the other one says. There's two here. Seriously, dude. This is to Donnie Shekels Trump and Erica Shekels Kirk destroyed MAGA. And then the Old Testament. Why the Old Testament obsessed with foreskins? Is that thing? I don't know. See, the title gets cut off. I can check the title here. Let me see. This thing here. Erica Shekels Kirk. Old Testament hilarity. So, the more important thing that I have in my videos, the Old Testament stuff is way more important. It just is, right? You guys should understand that. I don't know if you do. Because that has, that has generational, that has thousands of years of effect on humanity. 2,000 years of negative effect on humanity. Where the Old Testament, so we're talking about the Old Testament has influence on 3 religions. It's the singular book, or the most important book from the Jewish tradition, and it's half of the book, or it's 75% of the book, and the book is everything. The Bible is everything. In Christianity, which is 2 billion people, and it also has an effect on Islam, although they don't include it in their works. It's a part of their story. It's the origin story of their story. So. Of the Muslim tradition, which is another 2 billion people. So, all these people that are connected to those religions, it's over half the people, right? And then all the people it affects people who don't do it. It's a bullshit book, and I've, described it in a way that should be obvious to everybody, in a way that you've never heard before. And it's affected us. Like, if you've been circumcised, you're affected by the Old Testament. And if, all these other ways that you've been affected, it's a part of our culture and all these things. And it's a fucking horrible book. It's the being that's presented in that book is a demon and not a god, or not a spiritual person even. And so, that should be more important. Like that's, but people, this is the seriously, dude. Whenever someone's like saying seriously, dude, that they're having a reaction that they expect. I'm going to know exactly what they're talking about. I'm not. I've already forgotten about the video. Right, so it's like you're having a little emotional, little fucking outburst, and I'm not connected to it at all. I moved on to my next video. Like whatever reason you're writing the comment, your little butthurt reaction. Seriously, dude, I love your content. You should stop right there. Like, okay, because this is not. I'm not catering to your specific belief systems. If you're benefiting from the content, then you should shut the fuck up right there. I mean, you don't have to leave a comment, but that's all you should say. There should be no serious, dude. You should say, I love your content. Been watching you for years, but Kirk and Epstein are not dead. You have to know this, right? So now, let's read the rest of this. I've come to realize that ones who still run with the assassination narrative are either retarded or straight up paid shill. Which one are you? LOL. The LOL is supposed to, minimize the comment. And I'm neither one of those things. I mean, I guess, you can always make a case for someone being retarded, right? Like we're all a little bit retarded. We all do dumb fuck stuff. But I'm not a retarded or a dumb fuck on this thing. Because you're the one who thinks you know something you don't. Because, what I said earlier about Erica Kirk, that there are variables in every one of these fake things that they do, right? So, like, it's asset versus variable. So, like, if you break this down to an equation, this stuff you won't get for other people, I don't think. If you have an asset, Charlie Kirk is an asset, right? And so, do you get rid of that asset? And you're getting rid of that asset because the asset that's known as Charlie Kirk is dead. Whether the person, the actor, is alive or not, right? You kill him altogether, the actor, the person that's involved. And so if you kill him, then all the other people who are assets are like, oh, fuck, they just killed that guy. They could kill me. And, that could have positive or negative effects, right? I'm talking about the motivation of these people. These people, the people who control the system, and I wrote about this quite a bit in my book, The Choice. and I've talked about it here on video after video. When you control things, that you're going, the reason they're controlling things is you're going against divinity. So this system is lined up against divinity, and so it's fucked. You know, divinity eventually will correct a lie. Like every time there's a lie, divinity at some point, the divine system, will expose the truth. Right? The truth cannot, the purity, the simplicity of the divine system, the unadulterated, purity of the divine system, its pristine condition. It always is going to, everything in nature is going to want to return you to that. There's a teaching in the Sajmark system about you as a person and you as a soul, and that nature wants to return you to your pristine condition. It's a beautiful segment describing the seventh maxim: be not revengeful by the wrongs done by others, take them as heavenly gifts and be grateful. And that involves the divine system that wants to get rid of all your egotistical bullshit, all your self-deception, and all your lies and all your impurities, and bring you back to your original pure state. And that's a benefit. Like, that's a wonderful thing. Like, and it has to be there when you're given freedom of choice, when you can go out and do things that are wrong, right? When you go out and do things that you're wrong, and you can make mistakes. So there has to be something to bring you back. There has to be some way that, the lies and the truth emerges. The divine truth, not the bullshit truth about this thing or that thing or whatever it is, right? And so the people who run the system, they're lined up against, they run the economic system and the global system. They're lined up against the divine system that is, all their perversions, all their lies, all their manipulations. When you tell a lie, immediately there's a counter movement on a spiritual level to expose the lie, right? So that's, you can see that everywhere. It exists. And so what they have to do is they have to repeat the lies over and over again. That's why you have these people with talking points. And I've shown you compilations I've put together. The stuff about the vaccine or stuff about the big lie. And they say this thing over and over again. The big lie, the big lie. They repeat it. They repeat these talking points because repetition is the only thing that keeps the lie going. That's why they always have to, say these things over and over again, because it has to be, reinforced to keep from divinity from exposing it. And they need your collective consciousness. They need people to repeat the lie. It's like a mantra, like all these people staring into the, abyss, going, the big lie, the big lie, the big lie, these things, repeating it over consciously. Because repetition of lies is the only thing that keeps a lie from being, especially generational lies, which is what they tell you. And so they know that the truth is, the divine forces are bringing the system down because it has to. Now there's natural divine forces. It's all natural. But then there's beings, there's higher developed beings that see what's going on, and they have to, through using thought force and using, divine, I always call them weapons, but divine, tools to create the destruction of a demonic system that we have, right? And so they're up against all those things. And so so that's why I call them the controllers, because they have to control every variable. And like Erica Kirk's a variable, so they have to control her. And so Charlie Kirk is a variable. And if you leave these people alive, if you leave Michael Jackson alive, you leave Charlie Kirk alive, and you leave any of these, Jeffrey Epstein alive, well, that's what happens with that. You have to worry about that loose end all the time. And so it doesn't make any sense to kill him. But if you do kill him, then everybody else realizes that could happen to them. Everyone else who's doing these things, everyone else who's involved. And that's good and bad. Like that keeps people from, it scares them and keeps them, to keep their mouth shut. But also they feel like, hey, they're going to kill me anyway. And so, there's arguments to be made on either side. But it makes more sense to me just to kill them. Like, that's what they would do. Why would they leave a loose end? But either way, you don't know and I don't know and we'll never know. And so to draw a line that, seriously, dude, I love your content, but watching you for years. But Kirk and Epstein are dead with some kind of an emoji. Yeah, you don't know that. And what difference does it fucking make? Right? Like, that's, you guys get caught up in these fucking details. And, you know, these fucking, you know, these rabbit holes, these separate little rabbit holes. The not dead rabbit hole. And then, you know, where are they? On some island together? You know, where do they stash the people? You know, how they, you know, I mean, they got this Charlie Kirk running around somewhere in fucking, you know, Montana or whatever, and Uzbekistan, you know, like what, you know, right next to Dumbfuckistan, Uzbekistan, you know, so you have to know this. Well, I don't have to know this. Why would I have to know this? Because you watched a video of some fuck who explained to you in detail how all these people are still alive. These people who push this narrative, who get caught up on one fucking thread, and you're missing the bigger point. You know, you're not realizing that me destroying the Old Testament as a fucking godly book is much more important, because that's something that can be easily done, and its effects on everybody. Like in this same video, you're ignoring the more important thing, and even more important than that is connecting to the divinity within you, and you're not seeing it, you're not getting it, you're not hearing it, right? Because you don't want to hear it. You want to get fucking, you want to go down Dumbfuckistan rabbit holes and figure out whether Charlie Kirk's alive or not. You know, whether it's what's fake or what isn't. Well, it's all fake. Like this whole fucking third dimensional reality is fake, because you are a soul. You're in a body. You are a soul. And so people lose sight of that and don't want to hear about it, and they just want to go on these egotistical things. I've come to realize, to have this is your epiphany, your great epiphany, that the ones who still run with the assassination narrative are either retarded or straight paid shill. Which one are you? LOL. Like, it's just, you know, you're worthless. Like, just, I don't care if you get anything out of my content or not, but I don't have, you know, you have no value. You're missing the whole thing. You're missing the, you know, the great things about this channel and the things that I do here, specifically about the divinity within you. And the importance of that is a solution, right? This other stuff just doesn't matter. And it's not something that you're ever going to be able to prove. And even if you did, what? What does it mean? You run into fucking Charlie Kirk at Kmart, right? Like at the Circle K. Hey, that's Charlie Kirk over there. What does that mean? Like, what would that mean? What if you actually saw Charlie Kirk and Epstein, like having freaking at Dunkin' Donuts, and you were like, "Hey, that's Epstein and Charlie Kirk over there. Is that Robin Williams?" And like, what, you know, what would that do? Like, you know, and you tell everybody, and they'd be like, "Fuck you, you're lying." No, I got a video. Oh, well, they don't look like him. It's deep fake. It's AI. I mean, what difference does it make? Like, you're missing the fucking point. But anyways, let's get back to the other thing here. I don't think you want to go down the jizz lane. That's something I said, and they spelled it CHIZZ. I don't think you want to go down jizz lane. Not sure what jizz means in the USA, but here in NZ, New Zealand, jizz means cum. Yeah, that's why I was saying you don't want to go down jizz lane, because you might slip. You know, like, I was talking about Ghislaine Maxwell because it's just great. Given the context of her, what she is as a person, is this, you know, the role she's playing in this storyline, given what she is, her name that's pronounced Ghislaine, but everyone says Ghislaine, even though it's spelled jizz in a different way, Ghis. Like, that's, you know, that should be pronounced jizz. And I don't even know how you get a G and an H together. Like, what's that? You know, in terms of the phonics behind somehow in the English language, you know, she lives in Britain, and that name, Ghislaine, Ghi, is Guh. Ghis is Ghislaine. They don't pronounce the S. They don't pronounce the I. They don't pronounce the G. I mean, they pronounce it as a hard G or a soft G, whatever it is. You know, there's Guh and J. And they say Guh instead of J, right? Guh. Ghislaine, you know, Ghislaine, maybe, I don't know. But either way, it shouldn't be Guh. But, you know, that comment made me crack up. I mean, just kind of gross, but whatever. Anyways, it's funny because I don't think I have said Dunkin' Donuts in a video recently, but the first comment was debunking donuts that somebody left. Why Erica Kirk, TPS, USK, and other shekel takers are demanding you. That's the video I just released this morning. Demanding you. I have to find the thing. Demanding you stop asking questions. Like I already forgot the title. So people are starting to comment on that. That video was just released, I don't know, 15 minutes ago. So, anyways, going back to this. See, the advantage of listening to this channel is simplicity, right? There's a simplistic message here that I have a firm grasp of the overall problem, right? Which is the system takes you away from your divine purpose. Like the system is hijacking, so it's encouraging your ego to go wayward and go off and make decisions that go against your soul's plan, your purpose for being here. Like you come down with a soul plan, your soul has goals and things that it wants to achieve. And you have your ego that has the capacity to embrace those decisions and those goals. This is the whole idea behind the Sajmark system. If you're connecting to divinity, your choices are different. If you connect to God and your soul, which is basically the same thing, just a different way of looking at the same, like the soul exists as your individual divinity, right? The part of you that manifests your divine existence. And then there is, the pathway back to the source, which is God. And that's, that's all like the same thing in a way. It's good. It's all connected, I should say. And so the decisions that God wants you to make and your soul wants you to make are the same ones. So if you connect with your soul, you connect with God, they'll tell you that, they'll not tell you, but they'll indicate, the same choices and the same way you go about those choices. It's not just what you choose, but it's the attitude behind what you choose, right? It's the gratitude that's supposed to be there. Your intentions, like, are you doing it because you feel like you're forced, or are you doing it because, are you doing it? The difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament, are you devotional towards God because you're scared of God or because you love God? The difference between being motivated by love or fear. Like, so in a relationship, whether it's your parents or it's your significant other, are you being motivated because you love them, because they love you, because there's love there? Or you be motivated because you're scared of them, right? Because they're going to discipline you, or they're going to, leave you or threaten you, or whatever it is. They're going to force you to do something out of fear. And so love motivation is so much better, but it's hard to come by. Most people are just so blocked from feeling it. This is why I said these religions had to use fear to get people to behave. They couldn't get people to love God. They couldn't induce people to love God or love a divine person, a saint or whatever. But most people are oblivious to that kind of thing. They can't do it. They can't even, love the people in their lives and whatever it is. So love isn't a motivation. So it's the only motivation that God gives. That God gives you the capacity to feel God's love and crave it, right? To crave more of it. And when you do things that are bad or wrong, that are, the wrong thing, then the love is disconnected. This is some of the, the great thing about the Sajmark system, that this transmission that you get from the system and the divine energy, the loving energy, when you make a wrong choice, it's like a cloud comes over and you don't feel it. Like you don't feel the connection, and you're like, oh, I want to do anything to get that connection back. So you reverse your course and you do whatever you have to do to reestablish that connection, that loving connection, right? So this is stuff that you don't get other places because they just don't have the experience and the knowledge of this, this solution, right? And so the problem is that we have a system, and, people don't want to hear this. I mean, they want to hear it, but they don't want to hear it. That takes you away from the divinity within you and encourages you to go on wayward, bad choices and also celebrates like the idea of freedom. When they talk about freedom, it's a freedom to do wrong. Like it's the choice, your choice is that you can make the wrong choice. That you have the freedom of choice to choose whatever the fuck you want, whatever your ego wants. That's not a part of God's plan, because a saint, a spiritual person that surrenders to divinity within them and surrenders to God, they no longer have the capacity to choose to do the wrong thing. I mean, they have the capacity, they just don't exercise it. They give that up, right? There's this wonderful talk by, the teachings in the Sajmark system are so much more sophisticated and practical, and they're timely. They're, these talks that Master Charji gave in the written books and things. And Master Charji, I was in America at some point, and I think I was there when this was given. I'm not sure. It might have been before I started doing the meditation, but either way, I read it, or I heard it when he was here, and then I heard it again when it was on like a DVD. But he was talking about American lifestyle, the consumerism aspect of it. And he wasn't an anti-money guy. He was a guy who rose up. He was a salesman that was wealthy, by Indian standards, and he was very successful. And he rose up to high levels in his company, right? He was one of the chief officers in the company at the end of his time, right? So he wasn't somebody who said that you were, taking a vow of poverty or any of these things, but he was, he shopped and did shit like that, like whatever it was. But what he said was that the culture here, you're in a state of perpetual choosing, right? That, there's a part of anything that you're doing. And he was talking about marriage maybe specifically, but all these other things as well, where you make your choice. And then that time ends. You make your choice and you live with it. It's a very important spiritual principle. You make a choice and you live with whatever choice that is. It's certainly a big thing, in terms of marriage and these other, things that you do. Like, sometimes it's, you make a choice and that choice is temporary. Where you live, you can move. The job you have, well, you can get another job, right? These things. But some choices are, they're permanent choices. And those permanent choices, if you when you get divorced or when you get, any of these other things, you change religions or any of these type of things, whatever it might be. You've put all this time and effort into one thing, and then you have to start over. But, what he was saying is that this idea that you're perpetually choosing, and that's what our consumerism system is, that, you don't live with your choices in America. People are constantly in a choice. You buy something and you're like, all right, I bought that. Now what else can I consume? Or that you make a choice and then there's things that go with the choice that you don't like. Like there's things that you didn't anticipate, right? And then you're like, this is part of it. And so, it's almost like a test of your resolve, right? There's a woman who used to watch these videos. We had corresponded, a few times, I think, on Facebook. And she told me a little bit of her story, and then she wrote something up on Facebook about it. And she was probably around my age, maybe a few years younger. And I think when she was in her 40s or 30s or something, her husband got some form of dementia. Like Bruce Willis kind of thing. Bruce Willis's widow. In fact, she reacted to Bruce Willis's widow because she was in a similar situation. Bruce Willis's widow was whining about her, difficult situation where she was with somebody who was breaking down mentally. And this woman, had no longer was getting anything out of the relationship because the person couldn't do anything from their side, right? When someone breaks down mentally, so her husband, and for many years, it had been like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, 20 years already since she was living with this, and it just gets worse over time where she became just a 100% caregiver and was no longer getting what you get out of a relationship like that, right? And to her credit, she stuck with it because, many people would want to start over and, have something new, which is, the American way, right? Like, this isn't working out for me and just, whatever. So this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about, right? So, how this applies to the truth community is that people want to go down endless rabbit holes, looking at filth, looking at lies, looking at deception, and, just uncovering another lie after lie after lie. And really, it's not. It's at what point is it pointless to you? Does it become pointless? All you need to know is that you're being lied to, and the system is taking you in the wrong direction. It's a bad system. It's bringing out the lower nature and hijacking your higher nature. So then what do you do, right? So that's the problem. Like, the problem is that your life is going in the wrong direction, because that's what everyone's life is. The system's, this idea of consuming, right? That you're always in a state of perpetual choosing. Like, you've been told you're a consumer and your choices matter, and everybody's trying to get you to do this choice or that, watch this. Everyone's wanting you to watch this or watch that, and on the media, or choose this or choose that. And then when you make a choice, like, you're like, all right, I'm gonna, you're making a choice to be married, and then you're wondering, hey, did I make the right choice, or are there other choices out there? And so that's why divorce happens. Like, that's all these things. People aren't like, all right, I've made my choice, I'm going to live with it. And so, like, that's the opposite of our culture, right? So, and that's been manipulated, right? Like, where everything's fighting for your attention. This is on social media and all these other things. But there's, the element of seeking the truth, which is, at some point, it's easy to see that the system it sucks. The overall system, our whole way of life is fucked up, and the whole thing is, imploding, because it's not backed by divinity. It's not why we're here. The reasons that you think you're here, the reasons you're told you're here, as you grow up as, like, say, an American or wherever country you're from. We have a global culture. To be rich and famous, like, these are desirable things. Your parents tell you this is why you're here, right? And they tell you, all right, even if they're religious, they tell you, your goal is to go to heaven. Okay, great. Read this book. Oh, this book sucks. Well, this book is full of contradictions, and the Old Testament. This doesn't describe God. This demon-like God that's constantly punishing the devotional people, and all this stuff that happens in the Old Testament. Weird shit. The obsession with circumcision, all the things I covered. Well, how is this going to lead me to heaven, right? Well, no, you just accept Jesus. What about all the people that were born before Jesus? Well, they went to hell. What happens if Christianity disappears in 1,000 years? And what about all those people are going to hell? Well, that doesn't make sense either, right? So, that's not a real solution. Like, that's not, they're feeding you a bunch of bullshit. I mean, what they have is control over you, your whole life, because you're scared of going to hell, and you're tempted to go to heaven, and you think that, this is your indoctrination that tells you this is either or. And so, whatever your goals are, people who become rich and famous, why are they all so fucking miserable? And why do they become worse and worse people when that happens? Because it's not a real goal. It's something, that's it's not a real goal. It's it's a false idol. And so then you have to figure out why you're here. And so in every aspect of the cycle of life and death, everything returns to its source, like the water cycle. Drops of, vapor come up from the ocean, there's evaporation, and go up into the sky, and then create clouds, and then rain, and then the clouds are blown inland, and they release the water onto the earth, and the water goes to these various, channels to make it creeks and rivers and things, and make it back to the source, right? Which is, there's this water cycle. And, that's a metaphor for the spiritual journey. But everything returns, like your body returns to the earth, and it becomes part of it, like all these things, right? Everything is, there's a cycle of it. Things return to their original creator, right? Like every body ends up being, either turned into ashes if you burn it, and then it becomes, it changes form into something else. So people breathe it in. It's part of the environment. It's part of that's people, but animals and all these things, right? You return to the earth, and then, your body breaks down and becomes, nutrients of various plants and whatever. These are the things that happen, right? That there's, everything goes back into, you've been eating, cows that eat the grass, and then you become part of the grass, right? You become part of the vegetation. Like, there's all these things. Your physical body, your spiritual essence. And so everything has returns to the source in some way. And there's a craving to return to the source on a spiritual level. And people that get in touch with that, even for a short period of time, they understand this is a thing, right? This is that some part of you wants to know what this is all about, and what's my purpose here. And you have a soul's purpose, and that soul's purpose is return to the source. And so this has been documented in one spiritual religious organization after another, to go back to God. And so there's that element. And there's a system, the Sagemark system that I do, that is the best system to help that process. And, so there's a solution. And when you are working on that goal, like you have connected with your soul, and you're working to serve God, you have some purpose here. You have skills, abilities, talents that are here to serve the collective, everybody else, and divinity itself, right? You have a purpose. And so you're given a purpose by your system, by your society. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to be. You have a job, you have a role as a parent, you have a place in society. These are what you're supposed to believe. This is the stuff that you're supposed to, you're supposed to pledge allegiance to the flag, and you're supposed to be pro-USA, and you're supposed to be pro-military, and you're supposed to, buy a bunch of shit, and you're supposed to have a job, and you're supposed to have these things. All the things that, you're told this is what life's about. This is, what it is to be a good human being. And when you find out that they're lying to you, then you have to figure out what your true purpose is. And in what way have they hijacked your purpose. And so this is what I'm talking about here. These two simple things, very simple. You're being lied to, and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not living, you don't have your true purpose. You're not finding out what your true purpose is, the reason that you are here on planet Earth. The multiple reasons, but the one overall reason. And you don't have a system to help you find out. And so that's something that I talk about here. Meditation is the best way to connect to the divinity within you. Everybody meditated, including Jesus, all these people. Everybody meditates, but they meditated on God. And that's where they got their spiritual evolution. And so there's that. There's saintly people. Like, everyone's supposed to have some kind of spiritual life. That's part of your existence. You have your material life, and you have your spiritual life. You have your physical body, your physical body's needs, and you're being part of a system, a society of people, and you have a role to play, a physical, material role, and you also have your own spiritual path. And so it's very simple. Like, it's two things, and it can be achieved with some effort, to connect to the divinity within you, and then that changes who you are as a person. It makes you a better person. It gives you a moral character, and makes you, have these things. And, these are side effects. And then the system that those people would create would be a complete different and better system than the one we have now. And so that's how you solve this problem. It's a very simple, solution that there's logic and merit, and something you can experience for yourself as you see yourself becoming a better person, and you contributing to society in a better way. Then you realize that this has merit. When you become a better godly person, and you connect to the divinity within you, you affect the people around you, and you affect the world in a better way. You're making the world a better place. And if everybody did that, the world would be a better place. So it's just that simple. But people just want to dive into the abyss of depravity. Okay, is Charlie Kirk dead or alive? Who gives a fuck, right? Is that why you're here? You didn't even know about the guy fucking 2 weeks ago. No, but I'm a part of a group, and we all believe that these people are alive. Okay, your group is fucking pointless. It has no, what's the end? What's the end game of that thing? What's the goal of it? How do you, whatever. Well, everyone else who doesn't agree with us is a shill. Okay, well, go enjoy yourself on Dumbfuck Island. You guys go to Dumbfuck Island, where you guys all have your little group over there, where you talk about this specific, very weird, specific thing, and that everyone who doesn't believe what you believe is worthless, and see how that plays out for you. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.